Today, we have a grab bag of Predators content for you. A lot of quick topics, many of them which came from you. Is Dante Fabbro the glue that holds this defense together? Is Juuse Saros being overworked? Are the Preds too high or too low in the power rankings? And what did we think about the month of March for Nashville? A lot of different topics coming your way, plus look ahead to the Buffalo game tomorrow night. That's coming up today on a loaded Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I am Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at ontheforecheck.com.
So we usually it seems like lately the Preds have been playing so much that it's like our format here on the show has been like recap the game, then the next day is preview, and then recap and preview. So the Preds have an extra day off this week. So Ann and I thought we would just kind of leave today's topics up to you, the loyal listener. And we got some interesting feedback that we're going to be talking about in a little bit. A lot of kind of like hot button questions that came. Some of us DM'd us, some of us tweeted them in. So yeah, this is going to be exciting to see what comes out of this discussion today, Ann.
I know this. I mean, anything could happen on this show. You and I with no game recap or preview. I mean, anything could happen.
This has been a show in which people have broken out into song. We have had jackets and hoodies removed angrily. So there is bound to be some fun in any episode of Locked On Predators. Before we do that, it's the end of March, the last day of what we said was kind of going to be a make or break month for the Nashville Predators. Mixed reviews on the month when you look back.
Yeah,
Nashville Predators.
Yeah, this was not maybe the month we wanted, but it's the month we got. There were some games, like when you start your month out with a 4-3 loss to the Seattle Kraken, it's just a little bit rough. Now the Predators have kind of bounced back, but there were some games they dropped this month that really sort of took the wind out of the sails of the Predators fans when we were sort of riding high, when the Predators were clicking on all cylinders. And this was a month, this was sort of a check yourself month. Like March was the month where you better check yourself, because definitely don't want to get too high, don't want to get too low. And expectations were not always met this month.
Well, you think back to where we were at the end of February. We had kind of the weird schedule because of COVID. Then we had Pekka Rinne's jersey retirement. And then we had, the stadium series. And there was kind of like a lot of wham bam stuff.
Yes.
Going to end the month of February. So we looked at March as kind of first couple of weeks, we need to settle back into things. Like we got to get the routine going because we got the playoff push coming up. And so we looked at this, and then we had been talking about April's schedule, which we talked about yesterday for quite some time. And you and I both went, look, this March is going to have to be the month where the Predators take advantage, because this is probably, when it's all said and done, probably the lighter schedule before you get to the thing. And that's, I didn't see the Predators really take advantage of that. I mean, you look at, they lost to, it's weird. So they lost to Seattle. Then they had that mini win streak going, that 3-game win streak. They had the big win over the Minnesota Wild, a big win over Pittsburgh, two very, very strong playoff teams right now. I think that was something like Minnesota's one of only 2 losses they've had in like the past 11 games or something like that. And then you look and it's like bad loss to Philadelphia, bad loss to the LA Kings, the bad loss to Vegas.
Yes.
Not a great game against the Ottawa Senators, even though they won 4-1. So I feel like it's a lot of, if the Predators wind up missing the playoffs, you go back to this month and be like, you know what? Here's where the points were left on the board.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. This was a month for the Predators to really take advantage and kind of bank some points. And in games, they did well in games that were going to be highly competitive. Like you said, Minnesota, Pittsburgh. I mean, they performed really well in most of their highly competitive games. It's the eggs that they laid in games that expectation was they could win this game relatively easy. And that, I think, is what is so frustrating. March was not a confidence building month necessarily for the Nashville Predators, in the sense that the games that they lost were almost embarrassing games. I mean, they just should not have lost. And so March had potential to be a bank some points, gain some confidence, get some momentum for rough April. And it just didn't turn out to be that. And it's a little unnerving heading into a really difficult April schedule, because I'm not sure that we have a good idea of what Nashville is going to look like in this highly competitive April, because their March was just wonkadoodle. It was absolutely crazy.
Is that your one word to describe March? Wonkadoodle?
Wonkadoodle. It was totally wonka. Like, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, the word doesn't make sense, but I like it. I like it.
Yeah, it's a perfect word for the Nashville Predators March games. Total wonkadoodle.
Did you ever see the movie Rockadoodle?
No, I've never even heard of it.
It was like a chicken, like a rooster who was Elvis, and he like went to chase his dreams of being a musician.
No, I don't like fowls, so I usually don't see movies about them.
That's a great, you never saw Chicken Run?
I'm not sure. No, probably not.
Oh, nice.
I've got things.
Classics.
Everybody's got things. That's just one of my things.
Yeah,
I've got things.
Do you go to Hattie B's and just hate eat?
So I do.
When you order the spicy tenders, is that take this, sucker?
First of all, I never order the spicy anything. But yes, I do passive aggressively devour chicken.
Yeah. That's good to know. But going back to actual hockey stuff,
there you go.
We talk about missed opportunities. I look at the standings right now, and we talked about yesterday about how the Predators are going to be in a fight and have a very tough road ahead of them to hang on to this wild card spot. When you look at the standings and you think back onto some of their missed opportunities this year, like let's say they had beaten Seattle, which we all thought they were supposed to.
Yes.
Let's not worry about the losses to St. Louis. Let's not even worry about the one to Vegas, because Vegas is a good team on paper. But let's say you change that Seattle loss to a win.
Yes.
Change Philadelphia to a win, and LA Kings, I get that they're a playoff team, but they're not world beaters anyway.
Right.
So let's pretend you also beat LA. All of a sudden, the Predators are second in the division, and even though Minnesota has a couple of games in hand on them, you still have the upper ground, and you play Minnesota, so you would still technically control your destiny. And that's what I look for, is just that not only costs you points, that costs you ground in the playoff race right now. And now you're going to have to work that much harder because you blew your chance to really rack up points against lesser teams you played.
I do think, though, Nashville traditionally has done well under that pressure, and I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but the last couple seasons when they've had to really push to get into the playoffs, or when they come into a playoff situation where they are underdogs, they seem to do well under that sort of narrative.
Mhm.
But it'd be really...
It's been starting. It started this year. Like, this whole season should be the narrative.
Yeah, it would be nice to see what they could do going into a playoff push in a different situation. I feel like we've seen this before. Yes, the Predators can push through a hard finish of a season and get into the playoffs, but could we just maybe once not have to do that? And unfortunately, because of the March that the Nashville Predators had, that's not what we're going to see this season.
Yeah, 2018 and 2019 were fun right up until the point where the playoffs began.
Yes.
It was definitely nice to, chase the President's Trophy and not chase a playoff spot.
Yes.
We're continuing our grab bag of topics coming up, and we got some notes and questions on Dante Fabbro, a couple of notes on Roman Josi, Juuse Saros, a couple of player topics coming up, and your hot takes for the end of the season should be interesting. But first, want to mention today's show brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. After months of playing college basketball, they're down to the final 4 teams. And yeah, it's going to be a big weekend of basketball coming up. If you want to put some money on it, just remember that Bet Online is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info, from the latest odds, contests, and player props. You name it, they got it. Plus, Bet Online also remains the best spot for all of your latest sports developments, including podcasts and reviews for all the leagues this season. And of course, not just basketball. Bet Online is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Plenty of odds and props for the NHL Season 2, which should get interesting down the stretch. So if you want to check it out, head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Bet Online, where the game starts. So, Anne, we solicited our loyal viewers for some topics to get into today.
Yeah.
What do we have? Let's see what we have here. Here's one from Jesse Overton Colton. This is kind of more of a statement. He said, Nick and Ann, is Dante Fabbro part of the secret sauce? It seems to me that the last time the Predators struggled this much defensively was when Fabbro was out of the lineup for an extended period. Very steady and predictable. We need Fabbro.
Mm-hmm.
If we're judging this based on hot take level, that is not a hot take at all. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's very... I looked at it, it's kind of crazy when you go back and kind of look at some of the advanced stats that the Preds have with Fabbro compared to him without him. It's something, there's like a big drop off in like defensive numbers when Fabbro is not in the lineup. And the Preds record when Fabbro's not in the lineup is also really off the pace. So, I mean, yeah, like, how much do you think he's critical to this Preds defense?
I think Dante Fabbro may be one of those very underrated players for the Nashville Predators, and it's highlighted when he's out of the lineup, unfortunately. I think Carrier and Fabbro are so important. And when you look at this defense, you see you've got the experience of Roman Josi and Mattias Ekholm, but Dante Fabbro is the one that's got the most tenure with this defense after those two. And you almost forget that he is a relatively young player. This is not his 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th season with the Predators. And he's been critical. And I think he's critical because he's very different than, say, Roman Josi. Dante Fabbro is a defensive defenseman. And I think that frees up some of the Nashville Predators defensemen to do some other things because he is your defensive defenseman. And when he's out of the game, it's not even so, I hate to say this, but, and maybe I'm wrong, give me your take on this, but is it that Dante Fabbro is so good, or is it that the 6th and 7th defensemen are not as good?
Here's my thing on Fabbro. I'm going to use a non-slappy Oscars reference here.
Thank you.
When you talk about every movie has its best actors and best supporting actors / actresses.
Mm-hmm.
The role of, the best actors are the stars. Like, they're the ones that this whole movie is about.
Mm-hmm.
That's Roman Josi and Matthias Ekholm when it comes to that defense.
Yes.
The best supporting actors, though, those are like, the guys that, the movie's not about them, but they're so good. Like, they're so much of a foil, like a character foil, that it makes the best actor look that much better because,
Yes.
you're interacting with them. And that to me is Carrier and Dante Fabbro. When you look at, because Dante Fabbro has been playing with Roman Josi this season,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at him, you think about Dante Fabbro. He's like the anchor. Like, he is like the steady defenseman who stays back there. Very, very good at like back checking, very good at like breaking up 2-on-1s. Kind of like that last, like, the last stopper in case things go haywire in the offensive zone. And then you think of like Roman Josi, who we know is like a lot more free flowing. He likes to jump in and start the offensive plays, likes to take a little bit more chances. That's why I think Fabbro has been a perfect foil for him because,
Mm-hmm.
When Josi pushes up, when Josi, jumps into the play, he can
Yes.
do that. He can take chances and be the player we know he is because he knows that Dante Fabbro is back there being the player that he is. And I think that has been what is missed is, we've seen Roman Josi take chances, jump into plays. And with that Dante Fabbro out there, hasn't been that same level of support back there. They've moved people around. Alex Carrier is with Josi now, but Alex Carrier is not really the type of guy that Dante Fabbro is.
Right.
So you kind of notice it more. He's like a perfect complement to the players the Preds have, and that's why it seems like they do so much better with him in the lineup.
Yeah. And the Nashville Predators have a couple of guys like that who maybe aren't the flashy, who aren't the high on the score sheet guys, but who really are fundamental to the success that they're having. You look at Yakov Trenin.
Right.
He's kind of another one where he's a little under the radar. He's not super flashy. But if you don't have him, you're missing components of your game. And it affects the other people that he plays with. And that's Dante Fabbro. I really think the Predators need to get him back. And part of it, again, is that I just feel like which is strange to me, but I don't feel like the Nashville Predators have a ton of depth when it comes to 7th and 8th kind of plug-in defensemen. And that makes the absence of Fabbro even more obvious, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly need him back for a variety of reasons. And to follow up your early point, yeah, I don't think the guys jumping in to fill the depth are as good.
Yeah.
Just fill that out. Another statement / hot take. This is from Brian Baston. Says Saros is getting overused. And kind of a follow-up to that, another follower, Caleb Cook, said he wants to see the Preds integrate Connor Ingram. Not David Rittich, Connor Ingram.
Interesting. Okay, where are you on this one? Like either portion of that hot take. Where are you?
Let's do the Saros portion because the Ingram's a whole different thing that I don't think we're going to see resolved this year.
Yeah.
Ideally, yeah, you would like to see maybe Saros get a few breaks here and there. But I don't think that's going to happen down the stretch because the Predators need to win pretty much every game from here on out. It's something like, I think it's Juuse Saros is on pace for 68 games played this year, while Rittich is on pace for 14. We may actually see that go different. Juuse Saros might hit the 70 game mark this year.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Like, it's really interesting because what do you do if you're John Hynes? Because clearly, no offense to David Rittich, but that's a step down from Saros,
Yes.
a noticeable step down from Saros. So what do you do if you're playing some of these back-to-backs? You need both points to stay in the playoff hunt. Like, are you going to go with a guy who was in the Vezina conversation at one point earlier this year, who's got like a .920 save percentage and has carried this team to a lot of wins they should not have gotten? Or are you going to try to conserve him, try to rest him so he's not, breaking down physically, but replace him with somebody who hasn't had that type of impact on the Preds this year?
I'm gonna go and I'm gonna go very differently and say that I don't think that Juuse Saros is being overused. Is he playing a lot of games? Yes. Is he likely to play a lot of games? Like you said, yes. He's on track to play a lot of games. But this is a very different goaltending situation for the Nashville Predators. For years, they have had a very reliable goaltending tandem. And again, this is not any sort of critique of David Rittich. He has come in and won some, he's come in when he's played and he's 5-3-1. So, he's solid.
But with an .890 save percentage, which is not good. That's not a good number.
No. And I think that this is very different than the decisions the coaching staff made when it was Rinne Saros or Saros Rinne. I think it's a very different thought process between who you play and when. This is not the same situation. The other thing I will say is that I think Juuse Saros is better with consistency. He was playing so well at the start of the season, and the All-Star break, he kind of struggled a little bit to get back, to his game, back to the level he was playing back at prior to the All-Star break. And I really feel like Saros is one of those players who does better with consistent play. So I'm here for Saros in net. The concern is he going to physically wear down? But I don't think we've seen any signs of it. I don't think that's a concern right now. You're going to have to be careful in April. And there are 2 back-to-backs in April. I think, you give Rittich the Chicago game and Saros the St. Louis game and that back-to-back. I think you give Saros Colorado and give Rittich Arizona in that back-to-back. So,
but here's the thing. Like, let's say, because that Arizona game's that last game.
Yes.
If let's say Saros played the night before and the Preds need to win that game, it's clearly Saros. Or
yes.
if they get like a couple weeks earlier, where it's like the Tampa doubleheader. What was it? It was Tampa and then Minnesota were the 2 back-to-back. Clearly, like, those are 2 really good teams.
Yes.
That you can't afford to lose to because of the playoff hunt. You have to go
yes.
Saros on both, right? Because you can't put an .890 save percentage guy against the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Minnesota Wild.
Yes. And again, it comes back to what we talked about earlier. I think March going a little bit differently for the Nashville Predators would make this maybe a little bit different conversation in April, and there would be a little more breathing room for Juuse Saros. I just don't think the Predators have done that, and I think Saros is going to, right or wrong, he's going to have to pick up kind of that slack in net. I think he is going to be played a lot. But I also, again, want to say I think he does better with consistency. I don't think Juuse Saros wants to sit many games out.
No, I mean, we saw it last year where he played virtually every game down the stretch except for 2.
Yes.
So I think you're probably right. This came from a DM, Fred Harder. He asks, or I guess he says rather, should it be time for the Predators? Actually, hold on. Yeah. No, he said, does it seem like the Predators have given up on Luke Kunin and Eeli Tolvanen? Neither of them have been playing a lot of ice time this season, and it seems like they haven't had quite the impact as the Preds had hoped earlier this year.
Ooh, he's just going right for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this I don't know that I would say have the Predators given up on them, but I think the Predators have really tried some things to get them going. And I don't think we're seeing a ton of success from that. Again, I do want to say this about Eeli Tolvanen. He is not scoring goals like he needs to be. He is doing a lot of amazing things defensively in other areas of the game. So I don't want to take away from that, but they've shifted him down to the fourth line at times. They have now switched Ryan Johansson and Mikael Granlund. If Mikael Granlund could turn me into a goal scorer, like he's just that good. And so it's been a little bit concerning to me that it hasn't been paying off that switch. I don't know. This is a tough one to me. I'm afraid that maybe Luke Kunin is running out of time. And this leads into a why didn't the Predators do something for that second line at the trade deadline conversation?
Well, it's funny you bring that up because
Oh,
what was it in Elliot Friedman and his 32 thoughts? He said the Preds, guess what, Ann? The Preds were one of the teams in on Phil Kessel, but nothing worked out. That's again
what?
Elliot Friedman.
Why? Why?
It was there. So I guess the thing, and this came from Puck Soup with Down Goes Brown and Ryan Lambert. They both said they thought the issue was that Arizona couldn't retain any more salary. There was already 3 players they traded away whose salary they retained. And because of NHL rules, you can only do that for like 3 players. And so that kind of turned teams off because they had a hard time making Kessel's number hit. The Preds could have done it. Like the math would have worked in the Preds' favor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing.
I mean, oh, so frustrating. So frustrating. And I think not making the move is one last gasp for this second line.
Yeah.
But I am telling you right now, if they do not do something in the offseason and get Phil Kessel, it's going to get ugly all up in here, up in here.
Same topic. JW Hood tweeted third and fourth lines are clicking. What is needed for more production out of the second line? Feel like they've been missing most of the season. So let's take that and go with what do you think? Do you think the Preds can get this going? Do you think Kunin and Tolvanen are kind of a lost cause from a scoring standpoint at this point?
I don't know. I will say I feel like they're running out of time because that line, they have got to get that line going before the playoffs. You just can't, I mean, and not that they aren't playing well defensively. They're not necessarily a liability line, but they are just not producing. And I think they're really under some pressure to turn that around when they shifted Mikael Granlund to that line. That's a big move when you're messing with the top line. That's a big all in.
And Granlund had so much chemistry with Tolvanen last year too.
Yes. Yes. So, it was a big move that seemed like it would pay off. And gosh, kind of still waiting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would like to see Phil Tomasino maybe up there getting some more playing time with the second guys. I know there's reasons why that's not happening, and he's also playing really, really well on the fourth line right now, and you don't want to mess up that chemistry. But you would hate to kind of relegate a line with either Ryan Johansson or Mikael Granlund down to kind of a fourth line role, but that seems to be kind of what's happening right now, just based on playing time.
Yes.
Because when you look at the chart, clearly the number 2 line is the number 3 line, the Herd line. They're the guys getting the second most time behind Forsberg, Duchesne, Granlund / Johansson.
Yeah, it's I agree with what you say. It's a little bit concerning when you're going to relegate somebody like Mikael Granlund to less ice time with those guys. Now, Mikael Granlund plays on some special teams, so it's not like we're not going to see him. But
no, not at all.
But gosh, we really need that second line to kick in. And I think that there is some pressure. I think that there is pressure for Kunin and Tolvanen to get it going. And they're kind of running out of time.
They're running out of time. Last one, and this actually is not really a hot take. It's just kind of content from our mothership, Locked On Podcast. The NHL Power Rankings are out this week. Predators in 14th, one behind the Kings, one ahead of the Dallas Stars. Top 10 right now: Colorado Avalanche, Florida Panthers, Carolina Hurricanes, Pittsburgh Penguins, Calgary Flames in 5th. Then we have Tampa, Boston, New York Rangers, Toronto, and the Minnesota Wild. What do you think of that list?
I think it's fairly accurate. I think the Minnesota Wild have done themselves some favors. They're on a tear. So that's kind of launched them up there. You know, I really would love to say I think the Predators should be higher, but let's face it, I don't think that they should be.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty accurate.
I think they're right where they are.
Yeah, I think that's, and what's frustrating is I think when they're playing their best and they have their roster, they can beat a lot of those top 10 teams, but they're not beating the bottom 10 teams.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the lowest ranked team right now is the Seattle Kraken, and we know the Predators have lost 2 out of 3 to them this year. Flyers are 29th, and the Predators, it's a battle to get just one win out of the 2 games they played. So definitely a slight concern.
Yes.
There. That's probably why they're ranked lower. Yeah, I don't strongly disagree with anyone else really in the top 10. I thought Minnesota should be a little bit higher just because they're hot right now. I would leave them over Toronto, although I understand why they're not. Boston's an interesting team to watch because they've been kind of in the same spot the Preds have been all season, kind of on the fringe. They have played really well over the last month. They are on fire right now. I would not be surprised to see them somewhere in the top 5 by the end of the season.
Yeah, that's one of those teams that's going to finish very strong. The Calgary Flames are a team. I was surprised that they had dropped down to 6 because I really feel like this team is so much better than what they're kind of given credit for. So that's a team I'm going to keep my eyes on. I think if they can finish their season strong, they're going to be one of the top 2 or 3 teams, I think, in this league.
Yeah, I mean, they're a team. If you're the Nashville Predators, I absolutely would not want to play in the postseason.
Oh, hard pass.
Yeah, because they have been on a roll this year. Yeah, if the Predators get into the wild card, if they don't get into the top 3 and get a wild card spot, it's either Colorado or Calgary, and that is a tough first matchup either way, especially because both of them significantly improved at the trade deadline.
Yes. Yeah. And Nashville kind of went with what we had. So I wouldn't want to pick either one of those. Which team would you rather go up against in that situation?
We're going to talk about that tomorrow. That is going to be our topic tomorrow. Who do you think the Predators, who, if you're a Preds fan, who would you want to play in the first round? Who would you absolutely not want to play in the first round? That's a topic we're going to have tomorrow. We're also going to look ahead to the Buffalo Sabres matchup. Hey, remember we were just talking about how the Preds don't do well against really bad teams and have dropped a lot of points? They're running out of time to do that. So tomorrow, pretty much based on everything we talked about today, I would say is an absolute must win.
Yes.
For the Nashville Predators, just for a variety of reasons. But I would say if the Predators don't win tomorrow against Buffalo, we have some serious problems.
Yeah. Outside voices on Monday's show. We will use our outside voices.
Until then, Anne, where can the fine people find your work?
You can find my work at ontheforecheck.com, and you can find me on Twitter at ANK_Mama on Ice.
I'm Nick Morgan. You can find me at ontheforecheck.com. Follow me on Twitter at _NSMorgan, and also be sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at LO_Predators. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like the video, share it, leave a comment. Let us know what you thought, or if you have any other topics you want us to discuss on a future show. That's going to do it for us today on the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We'll see you tomorrow.